right, welcome to Films from the Phantom Zone, your podcast about failed and forgotten comic book movies, where we would usually watch a superhero movie and decide if it belongs in the Phantom Zone, to be forgotten about forever, or among, what's the thing I usually say? Out
basically
in the world.
out in the world for everybody to experience.
Yes, thank you. But today we are doing a quick review on Black Widow. So it's not the usual thing we would do because we don't typically review new movies until we were like, hey, let's just throw in a review every now and then, right?
Yeah, and new movie releases are like spread out enough to where
Few and far between.
it can warrant a special episode.
Yeah, especially since like when we started, it was like there were no movies coming out.
No, not
So
at all.
that was like back in October.
The COVID days.
Right.
Which I guess is still a thing.
Yeah, so Black Widow, movie that was supposed to come out in 2020, early 2020.
Yeah, it was supposed to come out in 2020. It should have come out in like 2017.
Yes. So real quick, this is, before we like get into it, the fact that she's a character that was like the third main character introduced in the MCU, right?
Yeah.
She was brought in 2010 at
Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2, exactly.
Literally the third movie of the MCU.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, we see her in several films along the way. And she was the only, like, other than like Hawkeye, she was the only like main Avenger to like not have like a solo film. But at the time, Marvel Studios was ran by Ike Perlmutter, who's like this very elusive, like shady dude.
Yeah.
One of the two guys who him and Avi Arad, who ended up buying Marvel at one point when Marvel was like going bankrupt.
I remember seeing Avi Arad's name in a lot of the older
Yes.
Marvel movies.
And then, you know, they like have obviously their hands in all of this.
Yeah, he's
but
the guy that keeps fucking up Spider-Man, right?
no, that's Avi Arad.
Oh, Avi Arad kept fucking up Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Avi Arad kind of helped found Marvel Studios, and then shortly it was like uninvolved. So he basically wanted to stay involved in non-Marvel Studios, Marvel like franchises, so things that they were licensing to
like
other
Ghost
studios.
Rider, Spirit of Vengeance.
Yep. So he's involved. Thank you. So yeah, he was involved in all those movies. He was involved with like X-Men, Spider-Man. Nowadays, he's mostly just involved with like Spider-Man things, some TV stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of the Sony stuff he seems to be involved with.
Right.
Venom.
Even though, yeah, exactly. Even though he like works for Marvel, Ike Perlmutter was running the studio, you know, Kevin Feige being like the main executive producer, and they could not see eye to eye on anything because Ike Perlmutter's like super sexist and he's super old fashioned.
Yeah, weren't there like leaked emails or something saying that he didn't believe like female-led
Yes.
anything would sell at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
So specific things that we know like he prevented from happening was Black Widow getting a solo movie, having any female-led project, having female-led villains. So originally the villain of Iron Man 3 wasn't going to be
Aldrich Killian.
Killian. Yeah, thank you. It was going to be the lady, the botanist. What's her name?
That they kill off.
Yeah, Rebecca Hall's character.
Yes, I don't remember her name.
I remember the actor. And so, so her character was supposed to be the villain of that film. She was rewritten because, according to Ike Perlmutter, not believable for the women to be the villain, and girls don't sell toys. Ike Perlmutter and Avi Arad came from a toy company. Toys. It was a Toy Biz.
Toy Biz,
Toy
not Hot
Biz.
Toys.
No, Hot Toys is a different thing.
Hot Toys is respectable.
Yeah, it's Toy Biz, and so they come from toys.
Right.
Also, Middle Eastern toys. That's a whole different. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not gonna sure what that speaks to for like American markets or whatever, but that's a whole different thing. And he was also very much against like overspending on budgets. So was very against making big time investments that he thought were risky, even though Kevin Feige is over here saying they're not risky. So for example, he was against casting
Robert Downey Jr.
in Captain America 3, Civil War. And that was kind of the breaking point. So it was because of that decision that Kevin Feige sidestepped him, went to Disney and said, this guy's fucking everything up. Can we work around him? And they did. They plucked Marvel Studios out from underneath Marvel, put it in Disney, like in the corporate structure.
Right.
So Kevin Feige could do whatever he wanted to with Marvel.
That's when he got control.
Yes. And the rest of Marvel Entertainment, has no say in it anymore.
Was this before they came to the deal with Sony for Spider-Man?
Yes. That's all. That's
Okay.
Kevin Feige talking to Amy Pascal over at Sony. So,
So
he's
Perlmutter would have fucked up Civil War.
Yeah. And so Black Widow was never even discussed because of that.
Right.
Presumably, right?
I
We don't know.
remember Perlmutter also really wanted to push the Inhumans for some reason.
Right. Anyway, we're not talking about the Inhumans. We're talking about Black Widow. So because of those things, Black Widow gets pushed so far in the back burner that it's, 2020 before it can get made. Well after her character's already been killed off.
Yeah, which hurts some aspects of the movie, I think.
Yeah. Black Widow, obviously starring Scarlett Johansson, David Harbour, Rachel Weisz, Ray Winstone,
Yeah,
Florence Pugh.
pretty good casting
pretty
here.
much. Overall thoughts, do you want to go?
Yeah, I liked it. It was a very entertaining movie. I was into it like the whole time. It has a bit of a darker tone to it in comparison to the other Marvel movies, and a little bit more of a grounded tone to it as well, which is a little strange considering where the MCU is headed right now. So
Sure.
it
Right.
makes it feel a little bit out of place, but overall I did like this movie a lot.
I think this movie is incredible, and I loved it. And I really want to see it again. We both said this, we were about to turn the microphones on. We're like, we should have seen this one more time.
Yeah.
But overall, incredible. I honestly was blown away. And this is a movie I didn't know I wanted. And I'll be honest, I wasn't excited for it going in because a combination of this is sort of a prequel. We already know what her character is going to be. We already saw her die. We know we're not going to get any more of her.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that does kind of suck a little bit of the fun out.
Yeah.
Going in, it sucks the excitement out. Kind of lets the wind out of the sails, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as the movie's going on, and I'm talking 2-3 minutes into the film, I'm like, never mind. I need this movie.
The intro to this
is
movie was very
great.
I don't know if powerful is the right word, but it pulled me in for sure. The beginning of this movie.
I'm sitting here this should have been a top priority for Marvel, after Avengers. Because that was her first kind of bigger role. She had kind of a minor role in Iron Man 2. We learn a little bit more about her in Avengers, and it's at that point you're like, yeah, give me more, please.
Yeah, because there's actually some stuff mentioned in Avengers that you do see in this movie.
Yeah, I wrote that down. So again, a combination of that and the delays,
Yeah.
waiting for a movie that feels like it's never going to come because they delayed it maybe 5 times over the course of the last year and a half is a bummer.
Right. And the people that were excited about it, I'm sure that would set their expectations almost too high as well because they've been waiting so long for this.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a double-edged sword here.
Yeah. I mean, movies in the time of COVID is just, it's all over the map.
Yeah.
Right. Even on how we consume them, watching them on streaming, if we watch a big movie here at my house, I got a big TV and a big sound system and it's a nice experience.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But most people don't have that. Most people watch movies on, their regular size TV.
Like a 40-inch.
Yeah, with one speaker that sucks.
1080p TV.
A lot of people watch things on streaming. They just watch them on their laptops or on their fucking phones or iPads.
And Christopher Nolan would hate that.
Christopher Nolan will find you and kill you if you watch this movie on an iPad. There was something to say about being in the theater, which is just extra big, extra loud.
It's nice to have the theater experience again.
So that was super nice. Back to the film. I think this is a very well character-driven film. I think this is Natasha's movie. By the way, these are non-spoilers. We're going to spoil the movie a little bit later, so it's perfectly safe. Yeah. We will mark when that happens.
Yeah, we'll let you know when it happens.
Don't worry.
We'll tell you what to skip to if you want to avoid the spoilers too.
I mean, it's going to be the end of the episode. That's why you can just stop it.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, so the film is just a super well-written, character-driven thing, I think. Because a lot of times when you go into these Marvel movies, you're like, all right, well, where's the cameo? What if Iron Man were to come and save the day? You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it feels like that should happen. When you watch Iron Man 3 at the end, they've got the president as hostage, and you're like, where the fuck are the rest of the Avengers? The president has been taken.
That was an issue with a lot of the Phase 2 movies in particular. Thor: The Dark World, it's where were they? London?
They were in London.
To be destroyed. Where is everybody?
And no one's we gotta get on a Quinjet. I mean, I get it. They're probably several hours away.
I also feel like a lot of this stuff happened spur of the moment.
Yeah. But Iron Man 3, that shit takes place in Miami.
Yeah.
Don't.
Also,
give me that.
Tony Stark's house got blown up and it was on the news.
Not even Hawkeye's are you okay? No one's giving him a call.
Where's Fury?
So you kind of, for me, when I go into a movie where it's not one of those those big team ups, it's something I kind of fear where I'm are they going to undercut her because Captain America's in this movie. Because going in, we didn't know if Captain America was going to be in this film. We know that this takes place between Civil War and Infinity War.
So it was possible.
Where, her and Cap, not Ant-Man and not Hawkeye because they
took deals.
They took deals. But Sam, I think it was basically the three of them. And Bucky. Well, Bucky's kind of like sealed up.
And then Wanda and Vision.
Oh, yeah, and Wanda. Not Vision. Vision's...
Oh, Vision was...
He was on Team Stark. He's on the compound.
Oh,
and Wanda,
right.
yeah, but Wanda was on the run with them.
When we see them in Infinity War, they're together.
They were meeting, remember? They had scheduled meetups.
Oh, that's right.
That like
in
Tony
secret?
Tony didn't know about.
Yeah. Oh, because Tony was like, I don't know where he's at.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so I didn't really know if like, are they going to undercut any of this with, having Captain America there,
Yeah.
I had no idea this was filmed so long ago that like we honestly
have
don't
Iron
know.
Man chase her down or something.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And it's well written enough to where it stays within like Black Widow's wheelhouse, and it's uniquely about her, and it's only a problem that she can solve.
Yeah.
She can't, it's not like she can be like, let me just call my friend Steve Rogers and he'll come save the day, right?
No, and it's tied very closely to like her past and her family. And,
yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing is like, we have had like some really good character moments with Natasha throughout the films because she hasn't had her own time to shine.
No. But she has had plenty of screen time.
Yeah. She's in a lot of stuff. Right. And you get a lot of her, like she's kind of the secondary character in The Winter Soldier, obviously Iron Man 2. And she gets a lot of play in Captain America Civil War.
In Age of Ultron, you get like a glimpse of her past.
Oh, yeah. In Age of Ultron, too. We have those moments as she like talks about her past, talks about herself.
The Red Room. And,
with Cap and with Bruce Banner.
Yep.
A little bit with Loki. But other than that, like we don't know anything about her. And then there's this part in Endgame when they're having her funeral. They're a little private funeral because they don't have time because they got to go do stuff because they just
have to save the universe.
Right. They had just collected the Infinity Stones and they're like taking 10 minutes to like mourn. I keep wanting to say like Scarlett Johansson.
To mourn Scarlett Johansson.
To mourn Black Widow, and they're over by the lake and Tony Stark is like, do we know if she has any family? Like, here's someone that you've worked with for so long, you know nothing about them.
And then they're like, no, just us.
And and then Cap's like, yeah, us.
Yeah.
Like, this is it. Like, we're all she had. And it's nice to like be able to like explore more about this super spy's background when even other members of the Avengers like don't know, you know. But you were speaking about the tone. This movie's a little bit darker.
It's up there with Infinity War and like dark tone, because Infinity War was relatively dark, but there was like still a lot of jokes thrown in there to like kind of break the tension. This movie's like it has a lot of dark themes. There's a few parts of it that are a little bleak, and the humor seems a bit more blunt in this movie.
They don't seem like jokes.
No.
Yeah. Because there is some humor in this, and I left the movie thinking that it was completely humorless. I was like, oh no, this one didn't have any jokes. And then I thought about it. I'm like, it did have jokes. The thing is that they don't have like the same kind of jokey cadence.
They're very tonally different.
Exactly. It didn't feel like they were put there. It just feels like
the characters were just kind of funny.
Right. It felt very organic in a way that a lot of Marvel movies don't in some of the humor. Yeah. You know? Not to compare it to Star Wars, but think of the first 10 minutes of The Last Jedi.
When Poe's like kind of fucking with Hux.
Yeah. And you're like, these are like jokes.
It seems like Marvel.
Yeah. These are like jokes that are like, they feel like really out of place.
They're jokes. Right? Like they're actually jokes. Yeah.
Yeah. This doesn't feel like it has any of that. It just feels like very natural humor with the characters that they've done, right?
Might cause a lot of people to think that this movie just doesn't have any humor in it.
Funny.
I thought this movie had a lot of humor in it. It was just a different type of humor.
Yeah. But no, tonally, I think it's a little bit dark. It feels a lot more like a spy thriller than anything that the MCU has done, even though the MCU has made like 1.5 spy thrillers, in my opinion.
1.5.
Well, Winter Soldier, I feel like, is a spy thriller.
Isn't that considered like a political thriller?
Might be a little bit of both. And then, you've got Civil War, which is like the first kind of half of it is very also kind of like spy-ish.
The part with like Bucky and
and all
like
that stuff.
Him being framed,
like before the airport. Everything before the airport feels a little more spy-esque.
And then after the airport, it feels like Avengers 2.5.
Well, exactly. And at one point in this movie, I'm like, are they going to start punching each other? Like, where's all the Marvel stuff?
There's a lot of dialogue in this movie.
It almost like this doesn't feel like a Marvel film in the best way. Like, this feels kind of like it could be a Mission Impossible movie. Oh, wait, a series of movies you haven't seen.
I've seen the newest one. with Henry Cavill.
Okay, cool. So could you agree
There's
with that?
There's similarities there for sure. Yeah.
That you feel like this is kind of like a high octane spy thriller?
Yes. However, I feel it has more of that in like the first act of the movie, more so than the rest of it.
I mean, by the third act, it's a Marvel movie again.
Right.
And there's some punching involved. But I honestly was like, are they going to start? Is there like a bad guy they're going to fight? Like, the trailers almost feel disingenuous in the way that it presented this like a very Marvel film. And now I'm watching something that's like much more grounded and kind of dramatic, you know?
Yes, this was a much more grounded movie, which, like I said before, like with the way the MCU is going right now, it does make it feel a little weird. Because, you know, we're getting like...
It's almost like a back to basics, though. Like, if it's like, hey,
yeah,
you remember this quaint shit we used to do over around like Winter Soldier? Like, let's do that again, you know?
Yeah.
To me, it feels like this is a stretch of the Marvel universe a bit in terms of tone. Because around phase 2... Phase 1 is all the same formula. Every single movie. It's almost the same.
And they're all origin movies too, for the most part.
After Avengers, when you get to Iron Man 3, it feels kind of like a buddy cop movie. It's like a weird kind of road.
By phase 2, like
comedy.
They start making them almost different genres almost.
Yeah, I have a theory that Iron Man 3 is just like this wild experiment to see how far they could push the genre and still call it Marvel.
I liked it. But I also know that's not a popular opinion.
Yeah, I'm on the fence. I don't like it too much. But same thing with Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like, can we make this wild? That was like a year later. Can we make this wild thing? And will it still be Marvel?
Yeah,
you know, or are people gonna hate it?
Yeah, and Guardians is more of like a, what genre would that be?
It's like fantasy. It's like space fantasy.
Space fantasy, but it's also like we have like this ragtag group of like misfits,
pirates, space cowboys, space pirates kind of deal.
Yeah.
Makes you think of like a little bit of Star Wars, a little bit of like Cowboy Bebop, you know?
A lot of Cowboy Bebop, actually.
So for me, I'm like, it just feels like this movie in particular has continued to like kind of push that boundary of what makes a Marvel movie to the point where I'm like, there's no genre anymore. The MCU is no longer a genre of films.
It's not just superhero movies.
It's not a superhero genre anymore. It's just a universe where there's a ton of different things happening,
and they just happen to connect.
Yeah, and they all exist in the same universe, and we're gonna see them connect, and we're gonna see a little bit of everything. But at the same time, like, here's a very kind of grounded sort of spy movie that's very dramatic and very about family, and that exists simultaneously with, like, you know, like you said, a Captain America political thing, and it exists in the same world as like WandaVision and Loki.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And Loki's getting wild right now.
Right. It's all wild in their own way.
Yeah.
But they can all coexist within the same universe.
Yes.
So it doesn't get boring. There used to be an old saying that didn't really pick up called superhero fatigue, where people thought we would get tired of superhero movies by now.
If you were making the same movie over and over, yeah.
Exactly. This is different. This is pushing... Yeah. It feels like in WandaVision where they're like pushing kind of the walls further and further. Mm-hmm. They're pushing kind of the boundaries a little bit more on what they can do within the MCU.
And eventually Westview will be the entire world.
Yeah, right. Every movie will be an MCU movie, actually. That's what we're getting at. But
Mission Impossible, actually in the MCU.
Actually. Fast 9, actually. Familia.
Oh, which... Speaking of that, this is also a very family-oriented movie. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
Oriented like to families, but like...
It's about family.
Yes.
Exactly, yeah. And I like that it doesn't feel like this movie it has a formula. It doesn't feel like it's been Marvel-fied. One of my biggest criticisms with Black Panther was that when we started hearing news about Black Panther and they went and got Ryan Coogler, who's like this very kind of like grounded and dramatic director, best known for Creed at the time.
Oh, okay.
Was going to do Black Panther, and I was like, oh. So it felt to me like Black Panther was going to be the kind of this like gritty, darker turn in the Marvel universe, something that would be kind of unapologetically about race, which it is.
It is.
But at the same time, it's very colorful, it's very jumpy. You know what I mean? And it's kind of...
It's very Marvel.
It's very Marvel.
Almost too much?
I think so. Yeah. I think that's kind of what brings that movie down for me a little bit.
The final fight is like almost like by the numbers, like phase 1 Marvel fight.
Yeah. And I get that part of it was they wanted it to be a simple film because it was going to introduce Marvel to a lot of people who had never seen these.
Yeah.
So
And there was good world building in that film, I'll say.
the movie's fine. I'm just saying I was expecting a bit more of a darker tone.
We might get that with the next one.
Maybe, actually. There's going to be some dark stuff in that movie with, T'Challa not being alive, right? Because they're not recasting the character. So
are they killing him, though? Or are they just...
They can't just write him off
just
forever.
Is he just going to be absent?
No, they would have to kill him. It almost feels disingenuous if they don't. If they say we're not going to recast him, then it feels disingenuous.
What are you going to do? You can't just have him on ice forever. Right.
But this movie didn't do that. This didn't get kind of the Marvel treatment I was expecting.
No.
It has the only, I think, opening credits in a Marvel movie. And I'm going to have to think about that. But I don't think...
Incredible Hulk might.
Incredible Hulk does, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's so early on.
Which
that almost doesn't count.
And the way Incredible Hulk did it was it was a weird thing where they kind of recapped his origin, which made it seem like they were recapping the 2003 movie.
I mean, a little bit, yeah. You got that kind of vibe.
Yeah. But this one was just a montage with a licensed song.
Yeah, it felt like a Bond movie.
Yeah.
It felt, like I said, like Mission Impossible. At this point, it's not necessary. It's purely for style.
Yeah. And I liked it. It definitely set the tone for the movie.
I honestly was like, is this a Marvel movie? The opening credit montage. What am I watching right now? It does not feel like Marvel. Movie? Yeah, what is happening right now? But it is nice to see a little bit more style, which is something that the Marvel Universe doesn't have. No. Because everything in the Marvel Universe has to fit together.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this doesn't fit, but it is kind of nice to see that, right?
Absolutely.
So, darker tone for sure. And then basically I think that's all we can say without getting into spoilers. I got a couple more things here if you want to add anything else before we get into spoilers.
No, what are we going to add before we get into spoilers?
Taskmaster is the villain.
Yeah, as seen in the trailers.
A second thought, I don't really want to talk anything about Taskmaster without getting into spoilers.
Yeah, I was in the same boat.
Okay, so the last thing I want to say before going into spoilers, actors, ScarJo, David Harbour, Florence Pugh, all do very well. As usual, it's hard to find a Marvel movie with a bad performance.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Even if it doesn't have the best actors, their performances
are usually stellar.
It's good because the direction is usually good.
And the writing is always is just top notch. I keep thinking she's underrated because of her incredible beauty. She's not. She's perfectly well rated. She's been nominated for 2 Academy Awards.
Yeah.
She was fucking amazing in Jojo Rabbit.
I did end up watching that, by the way.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
You like it?
It's really good.
Because when we talked about Jojo Rabbit, you hadn't seen it, right?
Weirdly depressing at the end.
Yeah. But it ends on a high note, though.
Yeah. But it's when everybody's just getting killed in the streets and stuff.
Well, it is a World War II movie. It's a Holocaust film.
It is. No, but yeah, it's a good movie.
But it's also a fun Holocaust film. But Scarlett Johansson was incredible in that film.
Yeah.
She was amazing in that. She's had other roles that she's really good in. Yeah. She's one of the actors that has precise control over her facial expressions. And I mentioned this, that she can barely move her face and yet project a completely different emotion.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping she brought some of that into Ghost in the Shell whenever we talk about that.
That'd be really interesting, actually. We should actually maybe bump that up. But this is a film that is, in my opinion, out of time. This is not a prequel for me. I feel like this is a movie that belongs squarely somewhere between Civil War and Infinity War.
Yeah, this movie would have been perfect to watch in chronological order.
Basically, yeah. Because
if they released it right after Civil War, that would have been perfect.
It would have been a little bit better.
And if they wanted to do a prequel type story vibe to it, then they could have done it right after Infinity War. But no matter what, I feel like this movie needs to be seen before Endgame.
Sure, yeah. Well, that's what I'm getting to is watch order. I think this movie definitely belongs to be watched, even by a first-time viewer, with the exception of the post-credit scene, which we're going to get to. A first-time viewer and a repeat viewer, I think this is best watched somewhere between those. There's 5 movies between those 2 movies, Infinity War or Civil War and Infinity War, and this belongs there because it's not a prequel. A prequel is a movie that's one set out of time, it goes backwards, but also it needs to be watched in that order because it's made with the viewer in mind. Yeah. And that the viewer would have had pre-existing knowledge of the previous film, which is set afterwards, right?
Right. This movie doesn't do that. It
doesn't do any of that.
No. You could this movie literally just picks up after Civil War.
And there's no kind of foreshadowing to something like her death and Endgame, nothing like that. No. It just belongs there. And I thought this going in, I'm like, that her Endgame death, which was for me felt a little kind of sudden. I didn't see it coming, and I should have. And when it happened, I was like, oh my god, she's dead. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, wow, you know? So I think that would benefit a lot from having a little bit more backstory. And I knew that going in because I'm like, well, it's a whole movie. Obviously, this is going to be a whole movie about her. Yeah. It'll inform the viewer a little bit more when her death comes in Endgame, right?
Yeah.
And after seeing it, yeah, I totally think that. And I think rare opinion for me because I'm very much like, do not watch these in chronological order. Like, it doesn't really make sense to do so.
Yeah.
And even though for the most part, the MCU is in chronological order for the most part. But for example, you can't watch Captain Marvel first. It won't make any goddamn sense.
No. Everything in that movie relates to what's happening.
What you already know.
Yes.
You're supposed to already know several of those characters.
If you start the MCU with that, you're going to be like, what the hell?
Yeah, you're supposed to know what the Tesseract is.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen Phase 1.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah, so overall, great movie, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think we have a rating system, but hey, I love it. I think this is...
I like it too. I recommend watching it.
I'm getting a lot of flack right now because I called it a top 5 in the MCU. I think you probably put it a little bit lower than that.
Yeah, mine's like more like... I don't have like a specific spot for it, but if I were to just guess, I'd be like middle tier of the movies, but like on the higher end of it.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many amazing
there
movies
are some other
in
ones.
the MCU already that I wouldn't say that this tops those, but it's one of the higher ones up there for me.
I mean, I think for me, I think this is up there. You got some Captain Americas. You've got like this, and
you have the Avenger movies.
One of the Avengers. The thing about the Avengers movies is that like I don't see them as movies because I don't think they're movies.
They're just like
I know it feels weird, but I think they're more like events. Like some of them don't have a normal plot that makes sense on its own. They're like
none of them are standalone movies.
That's what I'm saying. You know what they feel like? They feel like
the crossover episodes.
Something like that, or like a TV special. You know, like a variety hour, like TV special where it's like, what do you call this? I don't know. We did a thing. We put it
like,
on
hey,
TV.
Here's it's almost like each Avengers movie is like a bookmark in the MCU.
Well, I feel like the first 2 Avengers movies are movies. I know it sounds weird. This is a thing in my head that I can't explain. But by Infinity War, there's so many characters, and the plot is not a normal one. It doesn't have like a regular structure.
No, it's a culmination of...
Exactly, of a shit ton of other films. And Endgame's even worse when you look at it that way.
Because Infinity War is like the climax of the MCU up to that point.
Yeah.
And I guess like Endgame would be like the
conclusion. Really. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You could look at the last Spider-Man movie as kind of an epilogue. A little bit.
Sorta, yeah.
A little bit of a send-off.
Sort, yeah, for sure. For me, Infinity War and Endgame, they just don't count as movies. And I love them. I think they're fantastic. But I just can't look at them like a normal movie. They're not normal movies. So if you ask me to rank them, I kind of can't. Like, I think they're fine. I think they're great, actually. But I can't put them against, like, what do you put it against Iron Man 1 and Captain America First Avenger? I'm like, I don't know.
It's like not even like a fair comparison.
It's not exactly. It's like apples and oranges. Yeah. So those aside, I feel like I got, 2 Captain America movies, maybe all 3 Captain America movies.
All 3 are very good.
Maybe like Iron Man and this, and then maybe we get to like Guardians 1. I don't know. It's loosely up there for me. I think this is like a top contender is my point.
Okay.
And I guess that's my rating. But that's it for non-spoilers. From here on end, we're talking spoilers. We did really good for not spoiling any of this film while we were talking about it.
Because now we're going to like dive into the plot and stuff.
Pat ourselves on the back. We did really good.
Yeah, we didn't spoil shit.
We didn't spoil a goddamn thing, but spoilers from here on end. This is, for me, the big spoiler. Because plot-wise, there's a reveal, which is Taskmaster. But the big spoiler...
Which, that's not even...
Kind of the big takeaway of this movie is that it's like a Me Too movie.
Yeah.
Like the first major, like, Me Too film, right? And that's not my opinion. Scarlett Johansson said that.
No, and like the plot, like 100% revolves around that.
So the bad guy is not Taskmaster. That's just what they put in the trailers, right? Because it's the punchy, kicky one, right?
Yeah,
like it's you know what I mean?
When we talk about Taskmaster, I'll talk a little bit more. But
sure.
Like, that was probably my main disappointment with this movie was Taskmaster.
I'll agree with you. But for me, it's a nitpick. I'm like, it's fine. It's whatever. But the main villain is like Harvey Weinstein. There's a character... Dreykov, I forget his first name, doesn't matter. And he's just perfectly made to look, it's Ray Winstone.
It's a Russian Harvey Weinstein.
And it's a Russian Harvey Weinstein. The whole character is this mogul who controls a network of women with his pheromones, right? And he robs them of their innocence, humanity, family, autonomy, like everything short of just saying he sexually abuses them.
Yeah.
You can even read this movie and be like, he probably does. Like, he probably has it because, he can control them.
Yeah.
Like, 100% control them. So if you're this piece of shit, like, why wouldn't you have some as sex slaves? You know what I mean? I think that's the implicit part. Like, it's not. It's just a Disney movie.
Yeah, they're not gonna outright say
if there was a rated R cut of this film, they would. You know what I'm saying?
If this was like the Fox Marvel back in the day, they would.
Maybe. Because earlier in the movie, it's revealed that they engineered this kind of mind control on pigs, right? So the metaphor is all these women are his pigs. Like, that's how he looks at them. They're just meat, right? And so, yeah, if this was a rated R movie, he would absolutely be, like, raping them, I think.
And, like, you can control them to the point where you're like, stop breathing, and they'll stop breathing.
Yeah, they almost killed a pig, which made me very uncomfortable. I had to be like, this is a Disney movie, and they're not going to kill the pig.
They're not going to kill it.
This is Disney. Like, the pig will not die. But I think this is the best villain story-wise you could put in a Black Widow movie. This is the person responsible for robbing her of her entire life.
Yeah, and there's some similarities with the whole control thing to Kilgrave from Jessica Jones.
Yeah, and honestly, Kilgrave, you could say the same exact thing. Yeah. And he does abuse women in that. That's kind of the whole
and in
point
the
of
comic,
character.
I think he straight up rapes Jessica Jones.
Oh, does he?
I think so.
That is dark as shit.
The the Alias comics, they're very like
they're pretty dark, right?
Very dark, like pretty much R-rated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fits the tone of those Netflix shows perfectly.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that's kind of why I say, like, this doesn't need any cameos. Captain America doesn't have to come and save the day, because what does that do story-wise? When it can't be anyone but Natasha to deal with the person responsible for who she is.
Yeah.
Again, we don't know much about Natasha throughout the MCU, like her backgrounds or whatever. What we do know is a couple times that, like, she is very much a spy first, to the point where she doesn't have friends.
Yeah.
She doesn't admit to having a friend until Steve Rogers, when she's like,
yeah,
we could be friends. Is that what you want? I don't know. I don't fucking have any friends.
And this is in Winter Soldier, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's implied that, like, her only, like, real family is Hawkeye and his family.
Yeah. Which, I guess Hawkeye, she has, like, some sort of special friendship with Hawkeye.
It's very familial. Like, they're, like, brother-sister,
and,
kind of.
So, yeah, I guess her only friends, really, like, before, I want to say Age of Ultron, where they kind of, like, come together as, like, a real Avengers team, is, Steve and Hawkeye.
Yeah.
It sounded like I said Stephen Hawkeye, but Steve Rogers and Clint Barton Hawkeye.
Stephen Hawking's.
It took me forever to say that.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And so it is nice we see the only other family she's ever had in this, which is just like a couple people that she was on an assignment with, and they pretended to be a family for 3 years in her childhood. And that's it. So in any sort of like emotional capacity, she's not like a real human. She's this trained killer who was robbed of ever having family, friends. She can't birth children, which is something that she admitted bothers her in Age of Ultron.
Yep.
And it is kind of nice that in that movie, like, Hawkeye is going to name his next kid after her, because the closest thing she's going to have having kids is like being a quote unquote like aunt to his kids.
Names his kid Nathaniel, right?
Yeah, because it ends up being a boy.
Yeah. Hey, you can still Nat.
Yeah. So great villain, I think. And the build up in the third act, because the third act is mostly like their confrontation is almost entirely verbal. Like, there's again not that much action in this Marvel movie.
There's like a whole plan like unfolding while they're talking.
Sure.
But
and it's a little bit kind of Ocean's 11-y, you know, where you see the plan unfold and then they kind of go back and it's like, this was the plan, right?
Yeah. Except it's not a heist.
It's not a heist. But great stuff, I think. Great spy things. The part where she says, "Thank you for your cooperation," I literally jumped out of my seat. I was like fist pumping. I was so excited because the tension in that scene is so good. It's so well acted. It's so well written. And it's a callback to when she interrogated Loki.
Yep.
She acted so well in her face when Loki starts mentioning all the bad things
Doesn't he mention Dreykov's daughter?
Yes, that's the kind of the seed planted, right? He mentions Dreykov's daughter, and then we learn what that is in this film. But back then, it was just a thing that they wrote down.
It was just a throwaway line.
It was a throwaway line,
because this movie wasn't going to happen.
Exactly. And so the fact that they base the entire plot around that one line that Loki said is just so great. Like, it's so great, you know. But she like winces when he says Dreykov's daughter. Like, her, if you watch that scene again,
like
watch Marvel Legends. They put out like the Black Widow episode.
Oh, they did a Black Widow one.
Yeah, it was fantastic because it tells you everything you need to know about her. It not tells you, it reminds you because you should have already seen it.
It's like a super cut of all of her, basically her
greatest
best moments.
Yeah, I just watched that scene, even though I watched Avengers like 3 weeks prior. But anyway, when he mentions Dreykov's daughter, she's such a good actor that her face like winces a little bit in a very minor way that you can read like kind of like horror a little bit in her emotions, and so. She acts the shit in front of Loki, and when Loki thinks he has the upper hand, he like, says too much. She turns it off
because he loves talking.
Right. She turns it off and goes, "Oh, thank you for your cooperation." Walks out the door calm as hell, and you're like, "What the fuck just happened?"
Yeah, and Loki's like, "What?"
And so that they put this back in this movie, and here's the guy who trained all the goddamn spies, and she outspied him.
Yeah.
Just beautiful.
And like that kind of became like her running thing in MCU because she does it at the beginning of Avengers too, where she's on the phone with Coulson and she's like, "Oh yeah, this idiot's giving me everything."
Yeah. Oh my God, such a great climax for me. Is there? And again, it's a Marvel climax with not a single punch thrown. Later on, she breaks her nose, punches him a couple times, but whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just
and there's a fight with Red Guardian and Taskmaster kind of going on here.
That's almost filler. Like that's not the main event.
No.
You know what I mean? So
I do like Red Guardian.
Oh, fuck. It has such good parallels to the Harvey Weinstein shit and the Me Too movement. It's just one of those things that like transcends Marvel. The same way like a lot of kind of racial discussions in Black Panther kind of transcends the genre.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like the good stuff in that movie that I did like. You can say the same thing here. And I think it's just expertly done. Just so good. So so Taskmaster. You gonna move on to Taskmaster?
Yeah.
Turns out that that's Dreykov's daughter that he's been torturing this whole time.
Yeah.
And she's just another puppet. I was talking to a friend of mine. He was like, "Oh yeah, I called that like halfway through the movie," and I'm like, "Oh, I didn't." But sure, why not?
Well, like the fact that it was like a secret villain, like it had to be somebody that you had already seen in the movie at some point. Yeah, otherwise, it's not a reveal.
Unless they just wasn't thinking about it.
Unless they just kept Taskmaster masked the entire time, which they could have done.
I just thought it was going to be another person that they were torturing because... Yeah. So in the comics, it's Tony Masters.
Yes, who's a former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
It's one of those, it's so stupid because his initials are TM, Taskmaster. TM. Like, come on.
That's a comic book thing.
It's such a comic book thing. But he's kind of a minor Avengers villain because he can replicate all their moves.
Yeah.
So he was introduced to an Avengers comic. He can't replicate their strength, but sometimes it doesn't matter because he's strong enough that he's
strong enough on his own to where he can...
Yeah, it's the training and it's the movements that matter, right? He knows exactly where you're going to be. Because he knows all your moves also, he can predict what you're going to do next.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to beat him even if you are stronger than him, right?
And there is a little bit of like a tragic side to him in that like because he can remember all these stuff, he's also constantly forgetting things about his past or his family, stuff like that.
Yeah, I wrote it down here. The more implicit memories, i.e. knowledge and abilities, he learns, the more explicit memories, i.e. personal experiences, he loses.
Right. So he's kind of just like he's losing his humanity here.
Yeah.
To become such a good fighter, which is similar to what happens in this movie.
They did put that in this.
Right.
And I like that part because I'm like, she is losing her humanity. She's almost not a person anymore. Yeah. Because she might not even know who she is when he unmasks her and she's just looking straight forward, not blinking, and just kind of like twitching a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's like that part they got right. What I didn't like was they completely removed any sort of personality that Taskmaster had. Because Taskmaster is kind of a smart ass.
Oh.
And he's kind of witty. Like he's got a pretty cool personality. So what they did with Taskmaster felt, and I'm not going to compare this directly, but it felt a little bit like what Fox did to Deadpool in...
the first time, yeah.
The first time around.
Okay.
Where it's like, oh, let's just make this assassin and like... Granted, they got more right with Taskmaster than they did with Deadpool the first time. But like it took away one of the things that I did like about Taskmaster, which is just how he is. It's not just about like the fighting, you know?
Okay.
It feels like... like the villain was almost wasted.
The amount of Deadpool fans, though, compared to Taskmaster
That's
fans,
very true. That's true.
You know, like, everyone knew Deadpool. And so when you openly ruin Deadpool, it's like a big slight to fans.
Yeah.
I feel like there's just not as much. Like, I didn't know all that about Taskmaster.
There's not as much love for Taskmaster.
I've only really seen Taskmaster in the Spider-Man game.
Oh, where he's just kind of being a dick to Spider-Man?
Yeah. And yeah, no, you're right. He is he's a dick in that game. but I didn't really know much else about him.
But
until...
it's just one of those things where it's almost like what they did with like the villains in Phase 1 of Marvel, where it's just kind of, it's like, oh hey, here's this villain, and now we didn't really do much with them.
Okay, yeah.
And granted,
it's like Whiplash. It's not really Whiplash, but it's not really Crimson Dynamo. It's kind of something in between.
Yeah.
You know?
And granted, Dreykov's daughter is still alive, and she still has the ability to mimic because it's like a chip in her neck or something.
I thought they like plugged something into her, like Matrix style.
It's something that it was involved with her treatment after the explosion.
I would not be surprised if she comes back.
She could definitely come back, and she could still be a villain.
And she's controlled by someone else.
Yeah. Or even if she's not being controlled, like...
Or maybe she's controlled...
Maybe she'll come back as a smartass.
What if she's controlled by, what's her face?
Val?
Yeah,
Valentina?
Val.
I could see that too, because that seems to be something that they're setting up.
So my biggest disappointment with Taskmaster is that we just didn't see enough of her.
No, she's in a couple of scenes, and that's it.
Yeah, she's really not in this movie. It almost feels like she's only in this movie, for someone to fight for a little bit, so you could still check that off like your Marvel list, like you have a villain,
and to like
put on the posters and to put on the trailers. You know,
her initial appearance was very threatening, though.
All of it was fine.
Yeah,
and honestly, I would have been happier with just a little bit more. I like Nina. Again, not the main villain.
No.
And not interesting enough to be the main villain. The dad's the main villain.
Right.
Dreykov's the main villain, right? Yeah. Harvey Weinstein. But had they just fought for like a little bit longer at the very end, their fight at the end was very short, and Natasha beat her very quickly.
Yes.
I think if they had fought for 2 more minutes, because some of these action scenes, that feels like an eternity.
Mm-hmm.
Like 2-3 more minutes, they would have fought, and then she beats her. Sometimes it's confusing because it's like was classically a male and now it's a female.
Right.
So and that's why I was like, I don't want to say anything in non-spoilers because I'm going to accidentally say her. Then I'm going to have to go back and be like, that's the spoiler. So anyway, just a little bit longer with their final fight. I think it would have been a lot better because I think that was really, again, it's a nitpick, but it's like my main complaint with the film.
That's my main complaint with the film too, which granted, like, if that's my only real complaint, then that's not a big deal.
I mean, I have complaints with all of these. When you really kind of start breaking down like the plot of Civil War,
it's a little ridiculous.
It gets a little ridiculous, and what's his face's plan would have only worked had every piece fallen in place just perfectly.
Yeah,
it was kind of a long shot, and yet here we are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's best sometimes to not overthink these movies.
Suspension of
disbelief. Yeah. So again, my only real complaint here. Other characters, Red Guardian, he's pretty fun.
I love David Harbour as Red Guardian.
I love David Harbour, first of all.
Yeah. He was like super badass at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, I forgot. I skipped that part. The first like 20 minutes of the movie, 15 minutes of the movie or so, really good stuff. It plays a lot like The Americans, which is a TV show about the same thing. KGB agents.
Agents
hiding undercover in the U.S. Yeah, around like the 80s or 90s.
I loved it. Like Cold War vibes.
Yes. Yes. I love period piece.
Yeah.
Like political shit so much.
I guess that would be my second complaint about the movies. I wish more of the movie was like the first 15 minutes of the movie, like specifically. Just the whole like...
More grounded, less Marvel-y, maybe.
In a weird way, yeah.
Well, I think this is a happy medium because it doesn't get Marvel-y. And you know what? I got a little disappointed around the time when we see the like red misty thing, the anecdote,
the plot device,
the MacGuffin for the Black Widows to forget their chemical training or whatever. To me, that felt like a write off.
Just like an easy way to resolve this issue.
Yeah. Instead of actually dealing with like psychological brainwashing. Which. Maybe even like political ideologies. Like, it's hard to break those kinds of things.
They do kind of explain it to where like, what Natasha went through was the psychological thing.
Sure.
Which similar to like what Bucky went through, where it was like brainwashing.
Yeah.
And then when the Red Room was restarted, they switched to just straight up like
chemical stuff.
Literal mind control.
Yeah.
Which is still traumatizing.
Sure, but like what if you had brainwashed these girls through propaganda?
And they really believed...
And they actually believed what they were doing.
I think that would have been a little more interesting.
It's a little bit more interesting, and it'd be a lot harder to break them.
Yep.
They might still be like a force for bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when you just put it as clean as like, here's a little thing you smell, and now you're all better. It's one of those kind of plot things like we were talking about in TMNT and and Dragon Ball is just like an easy way out for me.
It didn't bother me that much.
No, by the end of the movie, I was fine with it. But at first, I was like, oh, great. Like, here we go.
Yeah. It did happen very quickly. Like, they just kind of glossed over it very quickly. It's like, oh, this is what we're going to use to fix everyone.
Yeah, that's kind of my problem there.
Yeah.
But, whatever. No, but David Harbour was awesome. Red Guardian, he's the Russian...
the Russian
Captain
answer
America.
to Captain America, I guess.
So, one thing I really like about this movie is all the time that they're kind of like... Because it's the Cold War, you know? Or at least this is the product of the Cold War. This is years after, obviously. This is modern day Russia.
Yeah.
But, like, it's the product of, like, you know, the KGB trying to have an answer for everything that the United States was doing. And the KGB's answer to, like, S.H.I.E.L.D. What's that? S.H.I.E.L.D. has a helicarrier? We have a helicarrier. You know, like, our secret base is up in the clouds, and you can't fucking see it.
Yep.
A little marvelly, because I was expecting the Red Room to be, like, in a basement somewhere, right? And then they're like, oh, it's this machine that makes clouds. Sure. But at that point, it's almost earned because I'm like, that's the end of the movie, first of all. And yeah, it is like the KGB's answer to S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yep.
So
it's
that
it's
works
like their
for me.
helicarrier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was like the space race. You know what I mean? I like that. And then that's the other thing I liked about Red Guardian. Now, did he actually fight Captain America? What do you think?
He definitely believed that he did. I don't think he was like boasting just to boast or anything. Like, he was upset when he thought the guy was calling him a liar.
Well, at first I was like, this guy's just fucking around. And then later when he talks to Natasha, he's like,
does he ever ask about me?
No, but like, really? Like he's being honest. Yeah. Like,
he's like, has he asked about
me? He has
me?
no reason to boast about her to him to her.
And I've seen a few theories on this where it's like, it's possible that he did fight Captain America.
I got 4 theories here.
All right.
Number 1, he's delusional. Very possible.
It's possible. He's been in prison.
He's been in prison for a long time. He's a drunk. Number 2, he fought time traveling Captain America. So at the end of Endgame, when he has to put all the Infinity Stones back, plus Mjolnir, we don't see him again because then he just ages back up and then he meets him at the same place, right? Time traveling Cap right there. What if he had to go to Russia for some reason, and he just runs into Red Guardian and they fight, and then no one believes him. Obviously, maybe that's why they threw him in jail. They thought he was delusional.
Yeah,
like,
and everyone was
no,
like,
guys, I fought Captain America. And they're like,
no,
he's dead.
He was frozen.
No,
well, in the
80s.
In the present day, they're like, he was frozen during that time. And back then, they're like, Captain America's dead.
He died 40 years ago. Shut your damn mouth.
Yeah.
Like, you're insane. Number 3, he just fought another secret Cap, like Isaiah Bradley. Some other U.S. agent that maybe was...
Yeah, like Isaiah Bradley or like a John Walker type where it's like, hey, let's...
look like Captain America.
Yeah. Because is it that far-fetched that, like, Reagan made like some sort of Captain America project? That seems like a very Reagan thing to do. Right?
Maybe. He's a movie star. And then number 4, and this is my favorite one, and it's not my theory, it's our friend Chris. He said maybe he was conditioned by the KGB to believe he fought Cap.
That's possible too.
As part of his like brainwashing. Yeah, they're doing all kinds of shit. Yeah. Like as they're training him to be, you know, Red Guardian, maybe they're like, you're not gonna lose to him again.
Yeah, because he's at least from what I got at the beginning of the movie when they get to Cuba, he's very, very much like a Russian nationalist.
Oh, absolutely. He wants to do as much as he can.
Yeah. He's like, I don't want to do this undercover shit. I want to be on the field. I want to fight for Russia.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It'd be funny if we ever saw him again.
Yeah.
And they explain this, or they don't have to. I'm just saying it'd be fun. It'd just be fun to see him again.
If it's the time traveling Cap theory, then that would mean that because the directors of Endgame and the writers of Endgame have said different things about what Cap did.
Sure.
The Russo brothers believe that he lived his life in another timeline and then came back.
Yeah.
Because he had the Pym particles to do so.
Right. That one doesn't make any sense to me.
That's what I thought when I first watched the movie.
Doesn't make any sense.
It makes more sense than there being 2 Captain Americas.
Why would he wait to be the same exact age to then come back?
He finished living his life. Maybe Peggy died and he's just done.
Why wouldn't he just go to the place? I went with the writers because you were alluding to the writers theory.
Yeah.
That he just lived out his life quietly
in that same
timeline and just didn't change anything, didn't do anything, lived as a normal citizen.
You think he was Peggy's secret husband the whole time?
That's absolutely what I think. And I think that's a more fun theory when you go back and you look at it that way. Like, she had a secret husband this whole time, and it was Captain America.
Okay. When he sees her in Winter Soldier, she's
already like lost her brains though.
But she's like surprised to see him. She's like, it's been so long.
Yeah, but she's also like losing it.
That's true.
You know what I mean? She has dementia. Also fun to think that there's 2 Steve Rogers at her funeral. The other one's just kind of like sitting back in the corner.
Seeing himself carrying the casket.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Anyway, so for me, this movie had no like prequel low bearing fruit, like in Han Solo when he get like, "What's your name, Solo? I'm gonna call you Solo," or like when he hands him the blaster.
They showed how she got her vest that she wears in Infinity War.
And I didn't even notice that until I saw a picture of Infinity War. I was like, "That's how she got her vest."
They mentioned the vest a lot in the movie too.
It was a fun little gag though.
We didn't talk about her sister.
Yeah, Yelena.
She's
fantastic.
And there's very possible that she's going to have a future role in the MCU.
They said it earlier. They said it right around the time this movie was supposed to come out the first time, is that like she's going to be the next Black Widow, basically.
Okay. And so moving forward, that she'll have a role to play.
Multi-film deals and all this stuff, yeah. So we kind of already knew that going in. I thought she was excellent.
Yeah, no, the good news is I really like her character.
Yeah, and it was one of those where I'm like, she's not going to be as good as like Scarlett Johansson, and sure, maybe she's not, but like she was in a lot in the first like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I guess, like after the Ohio part. And I was like, yeah, she's great.
Her character also has a very dry sense of humor, which I like.
Yeah, I'd love to see more of her. So that kind of carries us over to the post-credit scene, where she runs into Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. Right.
I did look it up. This was actually supposed to be her reveal, and not. It was supposed to be like a shocking reveal that she was here, and not in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
But they don't even say her name in this one.
They don't.
So I think it's the other way around. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Like
that's what I based on what I read. Yes.
So this is clearly was filmed recently. This wasn't part of the original movie, because this movie was supposed to come out a year and a half ago. So Julia Louis-Dreyfus was not cast by then, because she even said that they had to like hide her on set and all this stuff for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So I really feel like that was filmed around the same time as Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I wouldn't be surprised if they filmed it at the same exact time, like on the same set, you know, because that lines up a little bit more, I think. And I'm not sure if they had all those plans back then, not that they do now when this movie was first. This movie would have been shot in like 2018. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, as you know, Infinity War and Endgame are coming out, this is when this movie was being shot. So I feel like it's a more modern thing, and also like that's how they do all these post credit scenes. They don't film them usually on
no, the post credit scenes aren't they usually made like right before the movie's released?
They're usually made on the set of the next movie, because they want to tease a little bit of that movie, so they write a quick scene that could fill that gap. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's usually filmed by the next director. So I just get the impression this was made like pretty recently, at least like a year ago, around the time that they're filming Falcon and Winter Soldier.
And which is when we actually first saw her character.
Exactly.
She recruited John Walker.
Now, even back then, I think this movie was still supposed to come out first. I don't know, because Falcon and the Winter Soldier was delayed too.
They were both delayed.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier was supposed to be the first Marvel show. And that was delayed behind WandaVision.
Cut because of COVID.
Yeah, because it was going to be like a chemical
plague or something.
Something like that. Yeah. Exactly. So I get the feeling that she was still supposed to be introduced in Falcon and the Winter Soldier back when that was supposed to come out around the same time as this.
Weren't they supposed to like kind of coincide in their original release?
I don't know. It'd be interesting to look that up, actually.
Yeah, I do want to know which one was actually made first.
For me, it's that she doesn't introduce herself in this scene. It's written so that Yelena already knows her.
Yeah.
Florence Pugh's character. Whereas in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, she introduces herself by name.
It's a reveal.
It's an introduction to the character.
It's also because John Walker doesn't know who the fuck she is. So.
Well, I guess. But I'm interested, obviously, and this kind of sets up some more, especially in Hawkeye, which comes out later this year.
Yeah, it sets up Hawkeye because she shows a picture of Clint and tells Yelena, would you like to go after the guy that's responsible for your sister's death?
It's a loose way of putting it, but yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what it is. Like, the two of them went there and only one of them came back, right?
And that's all you know.
So if you want to oversimplify the situation...
Which she's clearly manipulating her.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, she's
manipulating all of them.
She's putting some sort of team together. I don't know if it's their version of doing like the Thunderbolts. Or
like the...
Which would be weird to do without Thunderbolt Ross being the one putting them together.
Well, I mean, he seems to still be casted.
No, he's still
like
in
he's
play.
in this.
Yeah.
You know?
Or she's setting up like a Dark Avengers type thing.
Might be.
So
a lot of people still speculate that she'll go after Agatha also.
It'd be interesting to see her go after someone that
She's
actually
alive.
has like supernatural powers.
Yeah, I mean, she's alive, right?
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, she's clearly putting something together. It's teasing something. This was obviously teasing the Hawkeye show.
yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting if she is the main villain, actually, in Hawkeye. Why
Would be
not?
interesting.
So, overall thoughts, again, just to wrap this up, and we said this at the end of the non-spoiler part, but just, for me, this movie's incredible. I really, really like it. I cannot wait to see it again. I doubt I'm going to, like, make a 180 when I see it again. I think he's just going to kind of confirm, what I'm feeling here. I really enjoy this film. I think it's one of the smarter, more grounded, character-driven films for Marvel, which is what I wanted, not even knowing I wanted it, but I'm very satisfied.
Yeah.
It's like you go to a restaurant, you're not hungry, and then someone gives you something, it's the best thing
And
you've
you're
ever
like,
had.
damn, this is really good.
Didn't even know I needed that. So, you?
I enjoyed this movie a lot, as said before. Like, not my favorite Marvel movie, but it's definitely high up there.
Yeah.
Really, the only real gripe I could say that would be an actual gripe. Like, obviously, I said my piece about Taskmaster, but, like, seriously, this movie should have come out years ago.
Yep.
And it would have had a bigger impact overall, like, both on this movie and on her death in Endgame.
Yeah. I think about, like, watching her death after seeing this film.
You care a lot more.
It's going to hit you a lot differently.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying, like, on rewatches, without the post-credit scene, the whole movie belongs in those 2 years between Civil War and Infinity War.
Yep.
Like 1,000%. Oh, I forgot to mention a couple things that they retconned that I really enjoyed. At the end of this, she's the one that kind of spearheads Team Cap getting back together. It's not, we always assume it's Captain because we see...
At the end of Civil War, we see Captain America on the raft getting...
breaking them out.
Yeah.
But now we know it's Natasha, who first of all has the Quinjet. She's the one that gets like on the black market or whatever. She gets a Quinjet.
Just a very resourceful friend that could just get things.
Yeah. I liked him a lot.
He's cool.
After this experience, she realizes who her family really is. It's the Avengers.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm going to break my family out of jail.
Yep.
So she probably goes
Presumably she gets Steve first.
Right. Somewhere in Wakanda, maybe. Where he dropped off
Probably.
Bucky.
Yeah.
Convinces him to, break everyone else out. And then they live on their 2-year kind of stint as fugitives.
Yeah.
Together. So I would love just you remember the Marvel one-shots?
Yeah, I miss those because I love those.
A Marvel one-shot, because I don't need a series, I don't need a movie. A one-shot, like a 20-minute thing of, just them in that kind of time period. Like Steve, Sam, Scarlet Witch, what's her name? Wanda. And Natasha, on the Quinjet doing shit. That'd be a great one-shot. It's an expensive one, obviously.
Yeah,
it's all the actors. But I mean,
most of the one-shots had minor characters.
Yeah. But, in a perfect world is all I'm saying. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Anyway. Oh, the part where she dies. I read this little theory, speaking of that, where that Yelena was blipped by Thanos. She was one of the 50%. And that was Natasha's, main driving force.
Well, yeah, because she was very determined to get everybody back.
What if she, lost her only family that she just barely reconciled with? That would be kind of a driving factor to... Yeah,
because there's no way that she didn't reach out and try to get in touch with her after the blip.
Sure.
Or during the blip.
And the part where she's the one that wants to sacrifice herself because she's she didn't say it, but she doesn't have as much as
everyone else.
As Hawkeye.
Well, yeah, he has an entire...
He has his family, he has his kids.
Yeah, he has a wife and kids who he's fighting to get back.
Yeah, and out of the two of them, he has more to get back from the blip than she does, so she sacrifices herself. But that'd be it's a nice little fan theory I read.
It's like they both have nothing to lose, but he has more to
gain.
Gain.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, cool. Well, that's been it for us, guys. Thank you for listening. Thanks to that piano dude for our musical intro. You can find us at... I'm just spitballing here. I don't have it in front of me. Find us at Instagram, Films from the Phantom Zone. Yeah. Instagram.
Okay.
You can find us on Twitter at Films from PZ. Got a bunch of regular episodes. This is just kind of a bonus review. All those episodes are on YouTube also, among all the other podcast platforms. But if that's how you consume podcasts, hey, you can just do that on YouTube. All of these are recorded on Twitch live Monday nights. You can join us for that. And I think that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah.
All right. We will see you guys. We're doing Dragon Ball Evolution, and we're doing Scott Pilgrim versus the World next couple episodes. So stay tuned for those. It's going to be a good time. If you're on Twitch, Hey, we're going to do that right now. So
yeah, we'll probably take a short break and then start our next episode.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know why I'm doing that. It is an episode.
It's a regular episode.
This was the episode.
Yeah, this is the quote-unquote episode. All right, thanks a lot, guys. Bye.
Bye.